track of the number of meetings that we are at. So I'll just call it, this is the first meeting of the month of May. Asanteni sana for making time to fellowship with us, visiting Rotarians and guests. Just a few points to note that kindly on the message, on the chat part of this Zoom call, kindly write your name and the club that you're visiting us from. That is if you're a visiting Rotarian, that is for purposes of roll call at the end of the meeting. And secondly, if you have a question for the guest speaker today, we'll do it in a different fashion. If you have a question as she presents, please also put it on the chat part of the Zoom call. Then we will address it at the Q&A part of the meeting at the end of the talk. So as I said, asante sana for joining us in this fellowship. We will start off. Oh, this is a very special fellowship. Let me just note that this is the day that women were officially admitted into Rotary. So yes, we bring the silliness and the flowery and the smiles. Otherwise, you would just be a bunch of guys hanging out. And as Pakanake's joke last week, still fresh in my mind. So a good look. So asanteni sana. We will have a female-led fellowship. We'll start by Liz taking us through the grace. Wandia, is she here? Is she here yet? Wandia is not yet online. Okay, so Liz will take us through the grace. What else can I put here? Keshi will take us through the 4-week test. Yeah, and Joki, could you take us through the objects of Rotary?
Yes, I can.
All right, sawa. So we'll start in that order, and we hope to have a successful meeting. So to kick us off, Liz, take us through the grace.
Okay. Natuombe. O God and giver of all good, we thank thee for our daily food. May Rotary friends and Rotary ways help us serve thee all our days. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Hand over heart or toast any drink that you may have in the confines of your house. A toast to the President of the Republic of Kenya.
To the President.
The President.
Santana. 4-week test.
Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is
it fair to all concerned?
Will it
be better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Okay. I'll take us through the object of Rotary. The development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service, high ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying by each Rotarian of his occupation as an opportunity to serve society, the application of the ideal of service by every Rotarian to his personal, business, and community life, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional men and women united in the ideal of service.
Thank you, Joki. Okay, the President is back. President Sarah, please. Okay, as we wait, so we'll start with announcements. As per previous meetings, please, if you are a guest or a member of another Rotary Club, please key in your name and your club details on the chat area so that we can mention your club at the end of the meeting. Thank you. So we'd like to start with announcements. Any announcements from any visiting Rotarian Rotaractor? Musabi, any announcement from Rotaract Club of your end?
Not really, no announcements.
Okay. Immediate past President Henry, any announcements from your end?
None. Well, maybe one, but we are still trying to raise funds for the Rotary District 9212 COVID response, and we encourage you to share your resources through the club, through Janet, and I hope that she's on this call to make the updates.
Janet, might you? I don't think she's on the call.
All right, thank you, Malaki. Nilikuwa na shida za hitilafu. Wewe, announcements.
Yes, announcements.
Okay. Anyone with any other announcement? Anyone with any other announcement? Maybe we can give, if Janet joins the call, we can have an update at the end of the meeting. So I guess in that light, have we done introductions for visiting Rotarians?
Not yet.
Okay, fine. Visiting Rotarians, let me give you a chance. Kindly, Evelyn Masharia, please introduce yourself and the club that you feel that you belong to.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Evelyn Masharia from Ongatarungai. Happy to fellowship with you.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Hey, we have faces that I have not seen here in a while. He at a visiting Rotarian, like he just has to say hi. Ken.
Yes, Ken.
Ken just left the screen there. All right. Musabi, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, friends and family of Rotary. My name is Musabi Moses from the Great Rotaract Club of the University of Nairobi. My classification is architecture.
Thank you so much. Ondari.
Madam President and fellow Rotarians and guests, good evening. My name is Ondari Mogeni from the Rotary Club of Westlands. My classification is public health.
Thank you so much. I see Rotarian Phoebe.
Good evening, Rotarians and friends. It's my privilege to join this meeting. Sarah, thank you for inviting me. My name is Phoebe Gital. I'm from the Rotary Club of Karura, classification, training consultant and business development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rotarian Stuart.
Thank you. This is Stu Martin calling you from Oregon, USA, where I do primarily water and sanitation projects in Kenya and Tanzania.
All right, thank you so much. There's a Rotarian, Sarah.
Madam President, family and friends of Rotary, good evening. I'm Rotarian Sarah from Rotary Club of Nairobi North, currently serving as the president-elect. Pleasure to join this meeting this evening.
Karibu sana. I can see Rotarian Leandro.
Madam President, fellow Rotarian, Leandro is my name from the Rotary Club of Nanyuki. Big pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I believe, Sospita, I heard you introducing yourself.
I'm Rotarian Sospita from Rotary Club of Bungoma, Magharibi. My classification is procurement. I'm the club treasurer.
Thank you for joining us. Anyone else who I may not? Hey, DRRE. The DRRN, for that matter. George.
Yes.
Congratulations first.
Thank you very much. Friends and family of Rotary, Madam President, good evening. I am George Otieno from the Rotaract Club of Langata. Classification is IT, e-learning, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, George. Anyone else who I may have forgotten, or Rotary Nixon? Rotaractor Nixon, sorry.
Family and friends of Rotary, good evening. My name is Nixon from the Rotary Club of University of Nairobi. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much. There's someone called Stephen Gakumo. Stephen Gakumo? You're very faint.
Better now.
Yes, better now.
Oh, okay. My name is Stephen Gakumo from UNAFIA, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone else who I may have left? Someone called Opar.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is, hello, hi. Hello.
Please proceed.
My name is Gift Opar. I'm from Rotaract and Afia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else who feels like they want to introduce themselves? Going once. Oh yeah. Kama. Please say hi. Kama. Okay. I may have lost him. All right. So, anyone else?
Sorry. Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Oh, good evening. My name is Kama, Charter Member Madaraka. Good evening, members and guests.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we will kick off this meeting. Our guest speaker is already in the session. I do have her profile, which I'm going to share shortly. Yo, man. Just give me 1 second. I find it. Okay. All right. It is a lengthy CV. Some of us just few words that we've captured everything. Major Sabala, other than being a Rotarian in the district, she works for the Kenya Defense Forces and is captain of a number of aircraft, both within and without the military. She's an enthusiastic pilot who is not only passionate about serving her country, but is also interested in serving her community. She's an enthusiastic pilot who not only is passionate about serving her country, but is also interested in serving her community and humanity. Her education credentials include commercial pilot license, attained from the South African Flight Training Academy in 2013, a 5 certificate of conversion attained in the year 2015 from the Jordanian Air Force, qualified flight training instructor, QFI rating attained in the year 2016 from the Kenya Airforce Flight Training School. Notable achievements include her exemplary performance in the Kenya Military Academy during cadet training, which spanned 20 months. This saw her being awarded the Commandant's Shield for Military Leadership and Command come from the commissioning of Intake 37 in the year 2010. Another notable achievement came in the form of the Goodyear Eagle Safety Award in the South African Flight Training Academy during her pilot training that saw her, alongside 11 other pilots, attain their CPL. She was the only lady in the course. Apart from being the second female pilot in the Kenya Air Force and the Kenya Defense Forces as a whole, Major Sabala is the first lady to ever pilot a fighter aircraft in the Kenya Air Force. She is also the first female qualified flight instructor in the military. Her driving force in achieving all this was simply giving the best performance in whatever task that one was called upon to undertake using available resources. One should never focus on the inadequacies, but rather use the attributes to achieve the best. Major Sabala finds herself from time to time putting her best foot forward in all she's called upon to do. Once we are dead and buried, we shall be asleep forever. So why sleep now? The Bible, which has shaped her principle, is itself awash with verses that discourage laziness and idleness. So kindly put your hands together and help me welcome our speaker, Major Sabala. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam President. As mentioned, I'm Major Sabala, but you can call me Sally so that you're not too serious about this. And I didn't know the CV was that long. I thought Muto had cashed it kiasi, but otherwise I'm happy to be here with you today. So I'll just take you through some pictures briefly before I begin a brief on my journey, because ideally we are supposed to mentor others so that they can follow in our footsteps. My greatest achievement would be to see other young pilots coming up from our community and achieving even much more than some of us have achieved. We want to see people going further and further from where we are. So I have a few pictures that I took. Like the one on the screen is a selfie I was trying to take. It was a dual flight, so don't worry, we were two in the aircraft. And it was a flight to Eldoret. That was last week. Then the next slide, yes, that was still the flight to Nakuru, Eldoret via Nakuru and back. And then the next one was a flight 2 weeks ago. Yes, this is what I really wanted to share today. This is Mount Kenya. We were at flight level 190 and it was just amazing. You always do it, but every other time you do it, there's something different about the experience. So this was 2 weeks ago. The snow is really melting, by the way. We are really losing the cover at the top of the mountain, but it is still beautiful. Now that the rainy season is here, you find that the snow cap is more or less back, and it's quite a sight to behold. But then when it gets hot, it's just bare rock. Not really encouraging. Okay, then the next one also is the same experience. As we were trying to get a good angle to get a picture here and there. We were aboard the trainer. It's called the Tucano aircraft, which is an intermediate aircraft trainer between the basic level and the advanced level, more so for fighter pilots. So this is one of the aircrafts that we use in the flight training school. So I see a question. Flight level 190 is 19,000 feet above mean sea level. So that's, we say 190 just to, we cut out the other 2 zeros and flight level 190. 4,000 feet would be flight level 040, for example. So the next slide, I think. Yeah. So now this is how my journey began. It began at the Kenya Airforce Flight Training School on the Bulldog aircraft. Ideally, before you start your training, you must be a commissioned officer, as mentioned in my bio, my long bio. So we had to go through cadet training for 20 months before being commissioned by the president in the year 2010. Now, for you to be a cadet, you must have attained a minimum grade of B and above. But then for Air Force, the stakes are a bit higher because you have to do the aptitude test. You must have your sciences. They don't take people without physics and geography. That was during my time. If you didn't have geography, they would drop you out. If you didn't have physics, you also dropped out. So those are the prerequisites. So if you have a younger sister, brother, or a child who you like to mold towards this career and then in high school, an important aspect should be pointed out that they would have to have physics and geography and at least a B+ and above in the KCSE performance. So once we were commissioned, we were taken to the flight training school under the Kenya Airforce, and we began with the Bulldog aircraft for the basic training. So the Bulldog aircraft is an ab initio trainer. What you mean by ab initio is initial training that a pilot is taken through. Now that I'm an instructor, I sort of can break it down for people to understand, because it's like teaching a child to walk. For most pilots, we do things, it's a psychomotor skill mixed in with the cognitive. Is the cognitive aspect and the psychomotor. So you bring them together for you to be able to perform various tasks in the aircraft. But then for the ab initio phase, you have to break down everything. For example, if you're to fly just straight and level, you have to break it down completely so that the student can learn and understand. So the Bulldog aircraft is used for that, was used for us for that initial stage. Then the next slide will take us to South Africa, because once we were done with the Bulldog aircraft, we went to South Africa for my commercial pilot license. And I found myself in the province of Gauteng. Those who've been to South Africa know that Johannesburg is in Gauteng. So we were 40 minutes away from Gauteng, that is in a town known as Heidelberg. And there was a school there known as South African Flight Training Academy, which had specialized in training pilots from all over Africa. So we were a mix from, pilots from Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Kenya. I say Kenya because we were from the Air Force, but we still met other pilots from Kenya. had guys from West Africa, very interesting guys from Nigeria. So I went through the training, the commercial pilot license training at South African Flight Training Academy. As you can see, this is one picture that I took in the Cessna 172. In the next slide, I think we have, this is the Piper Cherokee aircraft. The Piper Cherokee is a long-wing aircraft, so you can see even for the camera angle from the cockpit, you pick the wing. But for the 172, we were picking the strut because it's a high-wing aircraft, just to try and make it simple for now. Then the next, the other aircraft that I flew in South Africa was the Alpha. This is the one of the airports that I visited, Kimberley Airport in South Africa. One thing that really challenged us is that in South Africa, the aviation industry is really well developed. There's no town you'll find without an airport that you can land in, at least an airstrip, which is tarmac, that you can land the aircraft in comfortably. So there are quite a number, and they had quite a number of international airports, apart from Oliver Tambo International Airport. So we had like Kimberley, Polokwane, Pilansberg, so many airports that you could fly to during the day or at night. But in Kenya, it's a whole different scenario. Flying at night, you can only fly to Mombasa, Nairobi, maybe Kisumu, but not so much. We really need to develop our aviation industry in Kenya. So the other aircraft, as you can see in the next slide, is the Alpha 160 that I flew. The Alpha 60 is aerobatic, and we were introduced to aerobatics then, and that is where I fell in love with aerobatics for some reason, yet I used to be really scared at first. But it's so much fun. It was so much fun. I would like request to be considered to be in competitions and stuff. So it was an icebreaker for me, because ideally one would not expect a lady to be enjoying aerobatics, but I really found it to be fun. So the fun bit, when I came back to Kenya, once you are done with the training, I was now asked to go for the fighter training. As you can see in the next slide, I had to proceed for fighter training. My enthusiasm with the aerobatics. So I hope we can get the next slide. But basically that was, we proceeded to Jordan for that training. Yes, this is one picture that I took. It was a selfie by my friend as I was on the controls on the Alpha 160. She was also flying. She was also a pilot. So for out there, women are doing these things. Yeah, this is one of the airports that I was talking about, Polokwane Airport, up to the northern side of South Africa. Then the next slide, I think, should be taking us to, this is the day I turned my CPL. As you can see, I had 3 bars. So that is the commercial pilot license. When you have 2 bars, you have private pilot license, and you only fly for private purposes. You cannot be paid to carry passengers. But when you have your commercial pilot license, you are qualified to fly night, to fly instruments in weather. So you're capable of carrying passengers and being employed as a pilot for pay. That's what it means to have a commercial pilot license. An air transport pilot license, where you have the 4 bars, is just an upgrade from the commercial pilot license, whereby you have more hours and more experience. A few lessons learned. Racism is real. Tribalism is a waste of time and resources. Just a few tidbits, because we really experienced racism in South Africa. But so you would wonder, why do we are of the same color, but at home we are fighting amongst ourselves? It doesn't make sense really. Then in terms of how we are blessed is our literacy levels. As you all know, apartheid was a big thing in South Africa. So most of the Black populace are not literate. And then we have a unifying language, which is Swahili. We should make use of that. We are generally a happy people. We should be happy. We should continue being happy. And we are enterprising. You would go to malls in South Africa, and if you're not careful, you speak Swahili, and the person you're talking about is a Kenyan most of the time. Those who are owning businesses, malls, are Kenyans, the Blacks, because the indigenous South African people are not that enterprising, are not that literate either. Yes. So, yeah, so now after the South African experience, I found myself in Jordan for the fighter training. As I mentioned, it was out of the fact that I was so enthusiastic about robotics. And I have to mention that it never crossed my mind that I would be considered for fighter training. And I just did my best in South Africa. And then I found myself being asked. I was actually asked because I was told, if you feel you're not comfortable, you don't have to take this road. But I said, why not? Because, I mean, it's a new thing and others have done it, because I had heard about pilots in the US, female pilots, fighter pilots in the US, and other countries in the world who had done it. So I said, why not? So I found myself in Jordan. Initially, we started out at King Hussein Air College. That should be in the next slide. Yes, that's King Hussein Air College. I was a lieutenant then, for those who understand the ranks in the military. That was quite far back, because right now I'm a major. So I was a full lieutenant then, nyota mbili, as you'd say in Swahili. And the college itself was specializing in training cadets, the Air Force cadets for the Jordanian Air Force. So we were taken in through the fighter leading course. So fighter leading is supposed to just introduce you to the fighter world, because flying in itself is complex. But then flying a fighter aircraft is a bit more, requires a bit more training. So this one was just an introduction. Remember, I already had my commercial pilot license. I could pilot any aircraft, but still I needed additional training and quite extensive training before I could even get to close to the F5 fighter aircraft that we have in Kenya. So that is the reason why we found ourselves in King Hussein Air College. So in the next slides, we'll see just we'll catch a glimpse of how it looked like in Jordan. This is how they take care of the aircrafts. They put them in such shelters, because as you all know, the Middle East is quite a volatile region. So getting bombed is quite a possibility at any point in time. So they have such shelters for the aircraft. And then I think we have, in the next slides, we have, yes, that is the aircraft we flew. It's called the CASA 101 aircraft. As you can see, this aircraft, unlike the others that had flown before, it is a tandem seat. Tandem seat means you sit, one person sits at the front, the other person sits at the rear. And ideally you have two separate cockpits. So basically, by the time you're closing the canopy and lock the canopy for a flight, the person who is at the front, who is normally the student, should be able to understand the basic concepts of flying. And more or less, like I had mentioned, you should have already gone through training to a given level, because now you're going to just be instructed. You're not going to be really taught, as it happens at the basic level. So that was the CASA 101 training. Then in the next slide, I think we have, yeah, this was formation flying. Formation flying is one of the things that we do, which is peculiar to military training. because you have to fly as a force. You cannot fly alone. You have to fly as a force. So you have to learn to fly as a formation, that is as a team. And it is not easy. It looks very easy and beautiful from the air, but it is very dramatic when you're learning how to do it. Then the next slide should be, oh yeah, this is a selfie that I took while we were taxiing back ground. My instructor was like, Sally, would you like to take a picture? So I said, yes, definitely. So I took a selfie of myself in the casa. Very, very rarely do you get such moments when you're training because it's quite rigorous. And then I think that should be it. Oh yeah, another picture on the CASA 101. Then the next picture should be next to the F-16. No, this is the Prince Hassan Air Base. So we moved from King Hussein Air College, which was next to the Syrian border, to Prince Hassan Air Force Base, which is next to the Iraqi border. And why I bring out the fact that it's next to Iraqi and Syria is because ISIS was quite active then, and the bombings were quite close, just next door. But the training still had to continue. So we found us in Prince Hassan Air Force Base for now, specifically the F5 training, once we were done with the CAS 101. So this is formation flying on the F5. I found it particularly easy because the F5 is a heavy aircraft, so it settles in the air. Just a bit about formation flying. Then I think the next slide is more or less formation still. Yes, yeah, formation flying still. One funny thing is that as you can see, the markings on the aircraft are in Arabic. We identify aircrafts going by the number. An aircraft is normally designated a tail number. So we would be told by our instructors to go to an aircraft tail number this, and then because it is in Arabic, you'd find yourself in a different aircraft, and it always used to be very funny because we were not very conversant with the Arabic. Like now the O is 5, for example, so crazy. Then the next picture is me next to an F-16 aircraft. For those who are enthusiasts with the fighters, you'll know that we have several generations of fighter aircraft based on their capabilities. Like now the aircraft is a third generation fighter jet. It was maneuverable, it was able to use a sight system to engage the enemy in terms of engaging the missiles. Then you come to fourth generation, like the F-16, which have the capability, which have more advanced capability as compared to third generation fighter aircraft. For example, you have the use of the turbofan engines in the F-16 as compared to turbojets. So the turbofans are quieter and they use less fuel, so there's a greater efficiency as opposed to the turbojets, the third generation fighters. And then you find that the third generation fighters were mostly for air-to-air combat. But for fourth generation, fifth generation, they're trying to see how you can combine air-to-air, air-to-ground missions. Because if you're able to attack someone from the air, and then you have a surface-to-air missile station, you see that's a problem. You should be able to also attack somebody on the ground. Okay, so so I was very fascinated to just stand next to this beautiful aircraft, the F-16, and yeah, still a dream that maybe one day we will be having this aircraft. Yes. So that was basically my experience up to that point with regard to training in the lead up to the fighter world. Lessons learned, as I mentioned, the bombings were constant. We were just next to
the ISIS strongholds. This is a luxury that we must guard jealously. And as Rotarians, I believe that is one of the tenets that we really need to uphold in our country and in our communities. Then another one is the next slide. Okay, our people are suffering out there. Job and wealth creation for all should be a mainstay. While we were in Jordan, we met quite a number of Kenyan ladies. A few Kenyan Jamas, but mainly Kenyan ladies who are working as house helps. And it was very, very sad. Most of them were being treated as literally someone takes your passport, confiscates your passport, confiscates your phone. You have no communication with guys at home. You cannot leave the country. The people you're working for more or less own you. It was really sad. So I hope we can concentrate more on creating employment opportunities within our country, using what we have, as opposed to depending on, having people going to Maju. Yeah. So once I was done with the training at Jordan, I ended up at the flight training school again, this time around as an instructor. So as mentioned, I'm a qualified flying instructor. So in the next slides, just a few pictures. Once again, this is the Tucano aircraft, and it's an aircraft that introduces students towards the fighter world. Just another picture, but this one was on the Grob aircraft. Grob aircraft is a basic trainer that once you're done with the Bulldog aircraft, you go to the Grob aircraft, and then after the Grob aircraft, you proceed to the Tucano aircraft. And from time to time, I would find myself flying the F5. And yes, this is Mount Longonot. So for those who would like to climb Mount Longonot, you don't have to climb. You let's just get on board a plane and we go and see, take a few pictures. Yes, as I mentioned, from time to time, do fly the F5. So now in the next slide, just talking about life as a young instructor. I found myself being a very young instructor. But one thing is that whether you're young, inexperienced, in a world where you are alone, you're standing alone, belief in yourself is important, confidence is important. And for me, listening to and understanding the student was important, because as a young instructor, I'm prone to being very harsh and being mean, because you don't understand why someone would do something, so they don't understand why what you're telling them. They're not reproducing what you're giving them. So that element of patience for me, I really, really, really have to practice a lot. Then in the next slide, it's just about okay, then there's setting an example, mentorship, setting the standard, challenging yourself more. Yeah, in the next slide, it's about now me, what I normally involve myself in my free time. This is Shamba Vision. They try to feed street children. Nanyuki has quite a number of street children for some reason. Okay, Nairobi does, other towns do, but Nanyuki seems like it's quite we have a huge population. So from time to time, I would find myself visiting children's homes. Even up to now, it hasn't changed. I still have that passion to try and mentor someone. You never know. They might be wrong, they might be really, really rowdy, but they might turn out to be people who really, have an input to give in our society. And it's more or less in the same story in the next slides. I think Mota is trying to change the slides. Then another one, Tumaini Children's Home. We also have Tumaini Children's Home. And in the picture, that's Maria, who runs Tumaini Children's Home. Now, this is Carrie Lawrence, who was the first fully qualified female naval fighter pilot. That is in the next slide. And she has been an inspiration to many. She was the first to fly the F-14 Tomcat in the US. So, of course, I am sure when many girls like me see such a picture, you get inspired. So let's inspire our girls, let's inspire our boys towards achieving such feats. Okay. So the next slide, I think she talked about challenges. There's a mention about the challenges. So for her, stepping into naval aviation, it was about 100 years of entrenched strong culture, a culture that created an atmosphere that wasn't friendly to female pilots, and it never got easier. It never gets easier, but it's worth the while. So for me, it's the same. I saw this thing years back, and now I'm more or less living it, that strong culture that is entrenched. So the challenge is, what is this strong culture that has been entrenched in us that is holding us back as a community? We need to think about certain things. Then I think that basically sums it up. I don't know if there's another slide. Okay, of course, there's the challenge of trust, all-lady crew, the working environment. The ultimate challenge is, of course, conquering yourself in life. So from time to time, we shall stumble and fall. What matters is not merely getting up, but how we get up. How we get up tomorrow is influenced by what we do today. So make each and every day count, even during this time of Corona. Yeah. So a few canons of excellence: belief in God, belief in self, hard work and focus, determination, discipline, team spirit and resilience, that is, never give up. Someone just bummed down. Say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Okay.
Well, hello.
It is what it is.
Okay. So aspirations: excellence more so in my career, trailblazing in every possible aspect, mentor young girls and boys, setting an example, making a difference wherever I am, assisting the needy, making the world a better place, making each and every day of my life and of those around me count. Yes, I think, yes, end of the presentation. So, yeah, Madam President, you have the.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Celine. For a long time, I thought you are Sally. So I used to call you Sally, and wondered whether you are still the same person as Celine. Now you've clarified that. I think some people have posted a few questions on the chat, so we can start off maybe with those ones. Nixon from Rotary Club of University of Nairobi Afia asked, what is flight level 190?
So flight level 190 is 19,000 feet sea level. Yeah.
Yeah, you too. You too. And Liz was asking, what is a bulldog aircraft?
So the Bulldog aircraft is a type of aircraft which is used as a trainer. It has been used in extensively in Air Force training schools because it is aerobatic. So you'll find it was used in the UK, it has been used in Kenya, it's been used in Jordan, countries who are allied to the UK more or less, because it is produced by the what do you call them? It was produced in the UK, so countries allied to the UK, most of them, during the time it was produced in 1978, have been using the Bulldog aircraft for training.
Okay. Well, I think past President Kanake wants to ask you this question personally, because he has started a trail of, I have a question. So Kanake, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you so much, Major. We appreciate your input. My question, I'm able to answer it, is, but how old or how current is the Kenya fleet? Because we reports that we bought a bunch of junk aeroplanes from Jordan. So we'd be interested to find out the kind of fleet that we have as a country.
Well, that is a very interesting question. Unfortunately, I am a major and I'm at the tactical level, so I'm only allowed to answer questions that are tactical. When we talk about tactical, we talk about now the people on the ground, but we have the strategic level, that is who liaise with the civilian elements to come up with policies. What I can say is policies come in from time to time with regard to the need. So for example, we've been fighting Al-Shabaab. So the need for an air-to-air combat aircraft has lost, significance in the past few years, because now you need an aircraft that can give you air-to-ground capabilities, whereby it can support the troops on the ground. So you'll find that the policies that come up with regard to the aircrafts that are brought in is based mainly on the need, the prevailing need, and who has what show of force in a particular region. So with regard to the fighter aircraft, the F-5, well, it's a very sensitive issue, but yes, they came in and the aircrafts are flying.
All right. I believe you answered, Kanake. Silva is asking how old you are.
Maybe I can answer it this way. I'm in the military circles, I'm what we refer to as a Form 4 dropout. A Form 4 dropout is someone who joins the military straight from high school. So I joined the military straight from high school, and now this is my 20, not 20, this is my 12th year in service. Since I joined, that is since I joined cadet school, yes.
Yeah, calculators. Okay. Then, Rotary Club of Ongatarongai president is asking, are there any more lady pilots coming to the Air Force or the Army now?
Oh yes, there are. We just need to encourage ladies to take up it's not a tough job to do, it's just that the environment is tough. So they'll come in and then they'll be discouraged. You'll be told, oh, you won't get married in time, you won't get a family. So people get discouraged along the way. They're like, I don't want to be a pilot, I'd rather be, an air traffic controller or something like that. So it's we do have ladies coming in, especially in the defense forces as a whole. So, but being a pilot is a choice. Nobody's going to force you. So, and the options are open to women to joining the flying career. So, but we find that there are some intakes that come in and they don't have ladies, which is sad because they are there, but they've not taken up the flying.
Okay. Thank you. Biama is asking, how many flight hours do you have? And which other fighter jets apart from F5 does the Air Force have?
Okay, so let me begin with the F5. We use the F5 aircraft as a weapon. So we can fight air to air, air to ground, and so far it has served us well. And basically, at the strategic level, I don't know if they are seeing there's a need to bring in a different type of aircraft. The other question was what?
How many flight hours do you have?
Oh, flight hours. I hit 1,000 in January, so right now I'm doing around 1,150.
Okay. Kevin is asking, what mindset does a fighter pilot require? Do you have to be highly analytical or innovative and adaptive, or able to master complex tasks and repeat them effortlessly?
Basically, as a fighter aircraft, you need to think ahead. You need to plan ahead. Because unlike a transport pilot, mastering the aircraft is very easy. So you can even get on a flight if you're experienced enough. Get in and you're thinking, okay, from here to Nairobi is 30 minutes, so the fuel I'll need is this, and you calculate while you're moving. But for fighters, there's a lot of planning, it is a lot of work. Actually, the fun, see, I had so much fun doing aerobatics up to the point where I started doing the F5 conversion course, because now this is using the aircraft as a weapon. So you have to think about it that way. So of course the analytical bit comes in, and thinking on your feet comes in, and you just have to do it. You just have to have things at your fingertip and think well ahead of the aircraft. The aircraft should never ever be ahead of you.
Okay, all right. I will invite Njoki to also ask another question.
My question for you, Major, is in other functions in the military, you're allowed to join as a specialist. If you're coming from already done uni, then you are practicing elsewhere, maybe law or being a doctor or whatever. So for a pilot, are you allowed to join? You've not been to cadet school, you're joining as a specialist. Is that allowed?
Okay, thank you for the question. First and foremost, even as a specialist, you still have to go through training. So
okay, not for 20 months, right? Yeah.
Not for 20 months.
Yeah.
But it's still tough. Still, people find it very tough. It's 5 months. So, but we still don't have a system which takes in pilots as specialists. You have to train the full 20 months, because at the end of the day, when you do the basic training, we are trying to train the student towards being a combat pilot. Whether you're transport, whether you're fighter, whether you're flying the helicopters, you're a combatant. If your aircraft goes down, you're going to have to fight. So we cannot afford to have somebody who cannot fight on the ground. You must have the basic infantry training first. You must be able to command troops on the ground.
Okay, thank you for that. Mariana is asking, what is the age limit as a fighter pilot within the Army, and what would your career options be on attainment of this age limit, both inside and outside the Army?
Okay, the age limit, first and foremost, once you get to 40, you have to renew your medicals half yearly, as opposed to when you're below 40, you just do your medicals yearly. So that's something that changes with age. And if you are found with a with a condition, you might be asked to, assume ground duties. Mostly also with the military, you actually don't get to that age where people say you're too old to fly. We have even a current Air Force commander. A few years ago, he would still jump into the cockpit and fly. So we don't have an age limit per se, but we do have a limitation in terms of your medicals if you have a condition. And also when it comes to the military structure, I'm a major. I'm very lucky to be flying because I can easily be posted out to a command position, and I will have to go and carry out those duties. I cannot say I need to fly. So as you get more senior, the responsibilities get more, and you find yourself being pulled away from the cockpit also in the military.
Okay. Liz from our club asking, what is the age of the aircrafts and how often are they restocked?
The aircrafts are restocked as often as is necessary. For example, we've had quite a bit of restocking of the chopper aircrafts, that is the helicopters, because we need that air to ground capability. So it depends with the need. And basically the Air Force has a very, very strict policy when it comes to aircraft maintenance. For example, if an aircraft, the manufacturer stipulated that at a given number of hours, the airframe has exceeded its time, it will have exceeded its timeline, that aircraft has to be grounded. And it is grounded and taken, now we are coming up with a museum. It should be taken to the museum. So an aircraft, even out there, is supposed to outlive a human being. But it depends with how well it is serviced. Yes.
Okay. Nixon, you have a question? Okay. Joy Murugi of Rotary Club of Nairobi Thika Road is asking, acquiring flying hours is so challenging having limited to no finances. Do you think joining the Air Force is an easier way out?
Okay, when it comes to flight hours, definitely it is the easier option because you will not pay for your training, which is very expensive. You won't pay for your hour building, but you still are military. So you will have to carry out other tasks. You will not just say, I'm a pilot. That is one disadvantage. Another one is that once you're done with your training, you're bonded. So depending on how expensive your training was, you're bonded for a given number of years, and you have to serve those number of years regardless before you are allowed to think about leaving. So you still more or less also pay indirectly for the hours.
Okay, in the same route, Mark is asking what is the rough estimate on in terms of cost to fighter pilot?
Rough estimate. Give or take maybe 25 million plus. Give or take.
One person, 20 million plus.
Yeah. Yes.
Sawa. Okay. Henry has two questions. Is my IPP I will allow.
Hello.
I'm sorry, what? Are you or were you the youngest major in military? The second question from him is, describe your first 6 months in the military and what kept you going.
The first 6 months is more or less, I think, like the full metal jacket, I think. but it's not even close to that. It's crazy. You really wonder who actually sent you to cadet training. It is crazy. It's terrible. Anyway, not to discourage anybody who wants to join, but it is not easy. Maybe let me just say you should watch Full Metal Jacket to get an idea. I'm not supposed to discourage you from the training, so it is challenging. But what happens is that the training is designed to break you down, so that now the doctrine that is supposed to be incorporated into you as a cadet is brought in. So there's a lot of breaking down, especially in the first few months.
Are you or are you the youngest major?
No, definitely not. Actually, for pilots, we take quite some time before we are promoted, because it is pegged on the flying hours.
Okay. Now I'll just have to shut down the questions. The ones that have been put on the chat is what we're going to finalize with. Stu from Oregon is asking, did lack of a secondary school diploma or college education limit your opportunities or career?
Secondary school, I don't know. Because for me, the secondary school, the subjects that I took are the reasons why I was able to be taken in as an Air Force cadet. As I mentioned, you must have physics as part of your combination and geography. So I was lucky to have chosen the two, having not even known that it was a requirement that it would come later. Diploma, you require a degree, not a diploma for cadets. So it's either you finished high school and you have your B and above, or you've gone through university and you have your degree. At the end of the day, they'll still look at your KCSE grade. So it's actually the grade that determines whether you're going to be a cadet or you'll be taken in as an other rank. I hope I answered.
All right, thank you, Sally. Liz, you'll also prepare yourself to do the vote of thanks. I think you have the most questions here. What is the qualifications for enrolling to be a military pilot? Is it the usual number of height? No, sorry, the usual number of teeth and the height?
So the baseline is you must have the same qualifications as a cadet. But in addition to the requirements that are normally posted, the Air Force cadet must pass an aptitude test, and you must have the correct subject combination, which is inclusive of physics and geography. Then you will go through a more rigorous medical examination due to the effects of altitude on our physiology as human beings. So, in comparison to an Army cadet who may have an underlying condition that may not be discovered, an Air Force cadet risks more, has more that is investigated before they're actually accepted. But you must have the baseline. So some are lucky when you're found with a medical condition that can be dismissed, they're taken back to Army. But in some cases, you're just dismissed altogether. So you don't go through the training at all.
Okay. This is Nixon's questions. From your experience as a captain and then a major, what aspects of leadership do you think are the most crucial for any leader?
All right. I think as a young leader, the most crucial thing is getting to being, I don't know how to put this, because you have you have what it takes. You have the skills, you have the intellect, you have the knowledge, but how to apply it is not the problem, because someone who is older will have experience and they will be street smart in handling some issues. So when you're a young leader, you need to do a lot of studying and you need to have quite a number of mentors. And it's sort of like your whole life has to be occupied with you observing your mentors and asking questions, because that is the only way you're going to apply the knowledge that you have. So you may have the knowledge, but as a young person, you're bound to make mistakes. So, and then again, if you, again, it's a challenge to the older leader. Those who are older, they need to mentor a young leader who is coming up. It doesn't happen in most cases. So now again, that's another problem.
Okay. Sally, we're just about to wind up. I think there's someone, this one has already been answered. How does one join the cadet? I think that one, we've gone into it. There's another one here. What is the process of getting recruited into flight school once you have been recruited into the military? I think.
Okay, so the process, as I mentioned, you will have to be taken as an Air Force cadet first. So you have to pass an aptitude test. You must have the right subject combination. And you must go through rigorous medicals. Then once you're commissioned, you're posted to the Kenya Airforce, and then you have to do another aptitude test again to distinguish who is going to go to flying, who is going to go to being an air traffic controller, who's going to be on the ground doing other things. So again, there's another aptitude test. So the aptitude tests are become your friend, more or less, in getting to see who progresses all the way to flying.
Okay. Janet Washoya is asking how old is the speaker. She said she joined as a cadet right after, with a Form 4 certificate, living certificate, and she has had 12 years of service. So
yes.
the calculation is there for you to do. Liz, the last question. Does KDF have a charity or a CSR wing that admits special needs persons with a qualification that is academics and analytical abilities?
Oh yes, it does. But now the problem is to serve a combatant would be difficult. Probably you'd be taken in as a specialist capacity. We have a welfare, I would say welfare unit, because you see we have quite a number of soldiers who go out to Somalia, go out to fight, come back. It's very sad not having some things. So some of their body parts are gone. So where do you put them? They had to come up with a policy. So we do have that, and still coming up.
Okay. I will quickly read some of the encouragements. Some nice comments that have come in, not necessarily questions. Okay. The first one is by Evelyn Masharia, Rotary Club of Ngatarongai. I am impressed by your presentation. It's very rich. And secondly, I think I have always also admired your humility. So keep it up. Sospita from Rotary Club of Bungoma, Magharibi. That's that the name. Good presentation. Having worked in aviation industry as a flight dispatcher, I've today learned a lot. God bless you, Major. And lastly, Josh, past president from our club, Rotary Club of Madaraka. Great speaker. Thank you, Major Sabala, for the enlightening talk. Keep flying literally high. So, please give us the vote of thanks.
All right. Haya, sawa. Major Sally, we shall address you by the right name. Thank you so much for coming through for Madaraka. We appreciate that you've given us the talk, and seems like it's generated quite the excitement. I mean, your career, you are the, the daredevil that most men and women aspire to. Even the guys of Madaraka, please, you've been challenged. Aim higher, your KPIs. Anywho, for some of us, we are fighter pilots in our minds and in our dreams, but we wake up too soon. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for coming through. Thank you so much for showing us a different and positive side of KDF, because the stories that we know, the stories that we see, we'd not want to see or hear about that. But thank you for giving us the positive side of the KDF. Thank you for, representing us on the day that women were admitted into Rotary. Thank you so much.
Asante sana, Major Sabala. I am also quite honored for accepting this invitation on this day. It's a grand day because, well, if women were not admitted, basically, we wouldn't be having a female president this year. So thank you so much for honoring me.